The runway lights were still glowing with that soft, pale orange that appears only in the early morning, when the world feels half asleep and half awake. A thin layer of mist clung to the ground at the edges of the airfield, drifting slowly, shifting as if breathing in the cold Florida dawn. Mechanics moved with quiet efficiency, their voices muffled by the thick, humid air. The engines of the Beechcraft Super King Air didn't roar to life immediately. They hummed first, a low mechanical vibration that felt almost alive. Inside the aircraft, the pilot performed his routine checks, switch after switch, lever after lever, a dance he had repeated hundreds of times. He knew the feel of these controls the way a pianist knows the weight of every key. To him, flying wasn't an act of courage. It was habit, muscle memory, silence wrapped in metal. At 8:34 a.m., he radioed the tower. His voice was calm, professional, almost attached. The kind of tone that suggests nothing unexpected will happen today. Clearance granted. The engines deepened their growl. The aircraft accelerated down the runway, tires rumbling over the asphalt. The moment the wheels left the ground, the mist seemed to part beneath it, as if the sky was pulling the plane upward with invisible fingers. Climb rate normal, altitude rising, everything perfect. 7 minutes later, the skies swallowed his voice. When air traffic control reached out again, their tone was neutral at first, mild, routine, a simple check-in that should have been met with a simple reply. But instead, there was only the softest of static. They tried again, slightly firmer. Then again, no response. They checked the frequency. They checked their systems. All functional. The aircraft should have adjusted its heading by now. It didn't. It continued forward on a perfect, unwavering line. So precise it almost looked intentional, like a pencil drawing a ruler-straight path across the radar screen. But any pilot would have turned by now. No one climbed forever in a straight line unless something was wrong. The controllers exchanged looks that weren't panicked, but uneasy. A wrong kind of silence had entered the room, the kind that feels heavy, the kind that hints that someone, somewhere, is already beyond help. The aircraft eventually leveled off, not by the pilot's decision, but because the autopilot reached the altitude it had been programmed for. The plane settled into a steady cruise. Straight, smooth, lifeless. 2 fighter jets received the order to intercept. Their engines cut through the sky with a violence the Beechcraft could never match. As they closed the distance, the morning sun reflected off the aircraft's wings, giving it an almost serene appearance, like a bird gliding aimlessly, neither hunted nor free. The lead jet pulled alongside the drifting plane. The pilot leaned forward, trying to peer through the cockpit windows, but the glass was wrong. Distorted, not transparent. It looked cloudy, as though the inside had frosted over. He angled his jet closer, just enough to see what lay beyond the frozen haze. A shape slumped forward, completely motionless. He radioed the observation. His voice wasn't panicked, but the silence on the military channel afterward told its own story. There was nothing to do now except watch. Inside that cabin, the air had become a cold tomb. Investigators would later determine what had likely happened. A sudden loss of cabin pressure. So fast, so quiet, that the human body doesn't even register danger before shutting down. Hypoxia, they call it. A simple word for a quiet death. The pilot may have felt a dizzy spell, a moment of breathlessness, maybe even reached for the oxygen mask. But at that altitude, the gap between I should do something and I can no longer move is measured in seconds, less than the length of a single thought. The plane had climbed into a thin, unforgiving layer of sky where the human brain cannot survive without help. And when the pilot went unconscious, the plane didn't fall. It didn't spiral. It simply continued forward, locked into the last command he had given. Fly straight. Minutes turned into hours. Below it, towns and forests drifted quietly past, unaware that a ghost was moving above them. The fighter jets remained nearby, but there was nothing they could do. They couldn't board. They couldn't alter its course. Shooting it down wasn't an option, not over civilian land. All they could do was follow the inevitable. Inside the Beechcraft, the temperature continued dropping. Without pressurization, the air grew thinner, colder, crueler. Moisture crystallized against the glass, turning the windows into milky sheets of ice. The pilot's body, strapped into a seat, sat perfectly still, frozen not by time but by absence. The engines hummed with mechanical loyalty, unaware that their master had left them. As the hours passed, the fuel gauges dropped. The fighter jets watched from a distance, keeping the aircraft in sight. Eventually, the right engine sputtered. A cough, a choke, and then silence. The plane dipped slightly, but the autopilot fought to correct it. A minute later, the left engine followed, and then the sky let go. The plane began its descent, a slow, spiraling fall, almost graceful. It wasn't a violent plunge. It was more like a tired exhale, the last breath of a machine that had been running on memory alone. The ground rose to meet it, and the quiet fields of Georgia waited. Impact, crushed metal, a single plume of smoke curling upward like a final whisper. When rescue teams arrived, the scene was calm. No fire, no chaos, just wreckage resting in the grass, still cold to the touch. They found the pilot exactly where the jet crews had last seen him, unmoved, untouched, unaware of the 3-hour journey he had taken beyond consciousness. The flight data offered no surprises. It told a simple story. The autopilot had done exactly what it was supposed to do. The aircraft followed its path with precision. Everything worked, except the only part that mattered. This incident became one of aviation's quiet tragedies, not because of violence, but because of the stillness of it all. A reminder that in a world built on precision and metal and routine, the line between control and collapse is thinner than breath. And sometimes breath is all that keeps us here.